Good day, everyone. It's Jim from Calgary, Canada. Uh, was hoping to do a different video today. We've had some milder temperatures this week, and it looked like the snow was clearing up. The sidewalks were dry, but unfortunately, yesterday morning I woke up and there was 2 to 3 inches of fresh snow. Today there was maybe another inch of snow. I went into work yesterday thinking maybe it would be time to do a video on tips for winter running, and so when I got in, I started brainstorming a list of what I thought would be my 10 tips. I came up with 20 things pretty fast. This is all from my own head. I didn't cross-reference this with anyone else's articles. I didn't Google anything. So all this content is original. These are my own ideas, and I'm just going to go through them one at a time, expand on them whatever way I can, and hopefully you might get something out of this. So, my top 20 tips for winter running. Number 1, carry a backpack with extra clothing. I run probably 3 or 4 times a week, sometimes more than that. I have 2 backpacks. This one that I carry to work, a smaller one that I carry to church. I have a dry base layer with me at all times. First thing I do when I get inside is change into some dry clothing. Longer run, I'll have a hoodie, a t-shirt in there as well. If it's really cold, I'll put in an extra toque, maybe a face shield, and also an extra pair of mitts, maybe an extra pair of socks as well. So I'm prepared. I'm always prepared to run in whatever temperature I see on the thermometer when I leave the house. Unfortunately, I'm not prepared to walk in that weather. So if I do slip, if all of a sudden I find I can't run anymore, I'm going to need to change into dry clothes as quickly as possible, and that is the importance of carrying a backpack. The second thing, tip number 2, have a backup plan. Now, if I get up in the morning and I have to run to work, there's a bus stop probably 300 meters away from my house, and the bus runs every 17 minutes if it's rush hour and pre-COVID. And I know that I can just go there and catch a bus and probably make it to work on time. Now, if I start running and I'm a mile down the road, there's another bus I can catch. I've seen that bus pass by me several times. I have a rough idea of when it comes by. If I get 3 or 4 miles down the road, there's another bus, a different bus that I can catch. If I'm 5 miles down the road, or not 5 miles, 5 kilometers down the road, there's another bus I can catch. And I have a rough idea what time these buses roll by. I also have a bus pass or bus tickets on me at all times. So I have a backup plan if at any point in my run the conditions are more than I can handle. There's always some place I can wait and catch a bus. Number 3, run the same route as often as possible. Familiarize yourself with that route. Know where the water collects. Know where there's going to be icy patches. My run, the first intersection I cross, there's a pothole. If that pothole fills with snow overnight, I know it's still there. There's areas that are more slippery. There's more areas that are usually okay. There's people that religiously shovel their sidewalks, and there are people that don't. And so the more I run the same way, even if I don't consciously think about it, I think subconsciously I'm aware that this is where I cross the road, this is where I have to go to avoid a certain spill or whatever. If I'm running the same way every day, I'm going to be running the safest route possible. Number 4, know your surfaces. Whenever you're running, there's usually 3 options for running surfaces. 1 is the sidewalk, 2 is the road, and 3 is the grass. The grass is usually, there's usually snow on the grass. People don't usually shovel their lawns. So you might be running in a foot of snow, but sometimes that is the safest place to run. The road sometimes usually is a lot less slick than the sidewalks are, but at the same time, you've got cars on the road, you might not always have that option. The other thing is, when jumping from one surface to another, if you're running on the road and you see a car and you have to quickly jump from the road to a sidewalk, Make sure you eyeball that sidewalk and try to find a dry spot. This is not the time to test your long jumping skills because, I mean, one of the spills I've taken in the last 22 years of running was quickly having to jump from the road to the sidewalk, made that jump, hit a patch of ice, and down I went. So always be aware what is your best surface. If you have to switch from one surface to the other, if you have to cross an intersection, just slow down and make sure that you're ready, that you've braced yourself to get onto that new surface. Number 5, pick the best time of day to run. If you're not going anywhere and you're just going out for a leisurely run, there might be a better time to run than others. Now, for me, I've been working a little bit earlier in the morning these days, and it's been really great because there's no cars on the road at 5:30 in the morning. I get to run on the roads pretty much all the way to work. There are some drawbacks to that. It's dark. I don't always see the ice. And there's that morning frost as well. A couple hours down the road, it might not be there. Like a couple hours later in the day, the sun's shining, that frost goes away. A lot of times I'll run to church. The run there is icy patches. An hour and a half later, I've left service, and all those icy patches are puddles. So just pick the best time of day to run. Sometimes the sunlight's better. Sometimes really early in the morning when there's no cars on the road, you can run on that road surface. Those are the better times. Okay, so number 6, slow down or even walk towards intersections. Those high traffic areas around intersections are always the slickest, and don't assume that you can stop or slow down when you get to them. I will actually stop well before the intersection, and I'll turn my head towards the oncoming traffic, and I'll just watch the cars. I'm not going to assume that that car is going to be able to is going to be able to drive straight through. That they might be swerving. I've seen cars swerve and end up on the sidewalk. So I don't want to be anywhere close to the path of traffic when I don't have to be, and so I'll wait a little further back, and I definitely stop at those intersections. I've had the unfortunate to not be able to stop at one point and hit the side of a minivan. Unfortunately, I was okay, but that really taught me a lesson that approaching those intersections, slow down or stop. Number 7 is run on your day off. Become familiar with what your um, what your conditions for the next day of running might be. Now, I know conditions might change from one day to the next, but they also might be the same. If I see that the surfaces might be slick, I'll go out, I'll run to the library on my day off. The run to the library, the first 10 minutes of that run is the same 10 minutes as my run to work. And same with church. The first 10 minutes of my run to church is the same as my first 10 minutes as my run to work. So I'm familiarizing myself with the conditions of those sidewalk surfaces, and so when I do go to work the next day, I can leave at an appropriate time and even take the bus if I have to. Number 8, if you're just running leisurely and you have a cross-country option that is relatively well traveled, if you have a pathway, a park where there's people walking and it's just packed snow, if you can go out there with your friends, if you want to go out there by yourself, that is probably a much safer environment for running in the wintertime than in your residential areas alongside traffic. If if I would say that probably these small communities are better for running in than on major roadways, but the number one safety issue you have in the wintertime is the same as any other season. It is the motorists that are probably going to get you hurt more often than not. And so the more we can stay away from them, the more we can run cross country, the better off we are. Number 9. This is a two-parter. It's always, if you can avoid slopes, do so. Those slopes coming down when you're going through driveways, whether they someone's garage or coming out of a business parking lot, you want to either run on the parking lot surface at the very top, or you want to run on the road at the very bottom. A lot of times those slopes, that's where the ice collects, that's where the water collects, and they can be the slickest areas. And especially if it's alongside a road, you don't want to actually slip on those in those areas and then go into traffic. So run at the top, run at the bottom. The second thing is, if you're running down a hill, take it slow. If you can run in the grass, do so. What I found a lot of times is those hills are often, especially the sidewalks, are often the slickest areas. Also, when when the snow is drying up and you're looking at a grassy patch, grassy hill, those areas can be really slick as well. I have a hill that's been grass all week pretty much, and I've been sidestepping that wet grassy area, muddy area, taking it as slow as possible because it is still really slippery out there. Number 10. Now we have to properly um, keep up our flexibility and our strength during these times, because I know myself, I have a short choppy stride during the winter time. I normally have a very long stride, so it's really important that I stretch. I also try to do my strength training in the winter time, but do it at an appropriate time. Now, I like to stretch first thing in the morning. I usually have a 20-minute DVD that has some stretch exercises and some light strength training. But if I'm going to be doing a heavy leg day, I want to make sure I have the day off the next day, because if I'm going to do something that's burning out my legs and I'm running to work the next day and I get up and there's 2 feet of snow, maybe on a normal day when I'm fresh, that 2 feet of snow is a little bit of a challenge. But if I've done a leg day, my legs are burnt out, and I see there's 2 feet of snow, or even a foot of snow, that run is not happening. So just do your strength training and your flexibility stretching at appropriate times. Make sure your legs aren't burnt out for when you go into your run. 11. Don't be reckless because you have proper footwear. Now, I have really crappy footwear during the winter time. I've never owned a pair of cross-country shoes in 22 years of running. These shoes here probably have got 500 more kilometers on them than they should have. And um, I've never really taken a hard spill, but I was given a pair of coils that I could wrap around, some metal coils that I could wrap around my shoes, and I did run on those for for one winter, and then when you running them on concrete, what happens is they get mucked up a little bit, and you have to throw them out at the end of the season. But I did test them out. They were fine, but I had a little more confidence than I probably should have had in that product, and I did slip probably more than I would have if I had just been running in my regular shoes. So don't assume because you've got a 200 pair of cross-country shoes that you're not going to slip on that ice. Still follow the rules, still take the ice as slow as possible or avoid it whenever you can. And just don't assume that you can do whatever you want just because you've got great footwear. Number 12, winter test your clothing. Don't try that $15 pair of Walmart jogging pants for the first time when you're doing that 5-mile run to work or 10-mile run to work or whatever. You don't want to get out there even in -10 weather and go, oh shit, this is not good. These pants are too thin. This toque is not warm enough. Go out on your day off. If you have a new pair of sweats or a new hoodie or a new toque or whatever, new mitts, and just test them out. See if they hold up. Go out on a day when it's -30 and just make sure that clothing is appropriate for when you have to do those long runs. Number 13 is invest in technical base layers. I don't have a lot of really high-end technical stuff, but I do have some high-quality long johns and some base upper layers as well. And I can run out in -30 and I'm still trim and fit, and I don't look like I'm big and bulky. I'll show you my winter running jacket. Now this I've had for probably 15 years. It doesn't look like much. It's from Segoy. It's a great winter running jacket. I can put on a base layer, technical base layer, a hoodie, and just this jacket, it's good for up to -30. If I'm going out and say -10, I will have I still have the base layer hoodie or base layer and a hoodie, but I'll have a windbreaker on instead of this jacket. So the base layers are really good. You keep you light, they dry off quickly, and they're well worth the investment. Number 14 is know your limits. There's days I won't run. And people always say it's -30 you're running. No, -30 is not the worst weather for running. 0 is. The worst condition is always ice. Well, let me change that. The worst condition is ice with a thin layer of snow on top of it, or where you can't see the ice. So I've ran in freezing rain twice in my 22 years of running, and it was pretty scary. It's not something I would do again. If I wake up and I see that the puddles and everything that was there yesterday have all frozen over, and then there's a light layer of snow, that's the day I say I'm taking the bus. And so know your limits. You might not be someone that runs in -30 degree weather. You might not be someone that runs in +35 degree weather, but know your limits and just don't test them. If you have that extreme weather condition that you're just not comfortable with, don't run in that. Number 15 is keep your valuables in a secure pocket. And this mostly goes for your cell phones. I actually don't like running with my glasses in my hands either. If I were to trip and fall, and the first thing I have to brace myself with is my hands, there's a great pair of frames wrecked right there. And so I always keep, or unfortunately I haven't always kept my valuables in a secure pocket, but after a few times of hearing my cell phone clunking behind me, that is one thing I'm more conscious of. And so, and the other thing is, if you were to trip and fall and your phone goes flying, you might not be able to get to it, or someone, you might be unconscious. Someone finds you, and all of a sudden your contact information is lying on someone's lawn instead of in your backpack, where they can, quickly call whoever they need to. So that is number 15. Number 16 is give vehicles the right of way. I know motorists don't deserve it. I know they're not legally entitled to it, but you don't want to cause an accident either. Just because someone stops at an intersection doesn't mean the person behind them can stop. And you don't want to penalize the person who does the right thing in stopping by having them get rear-ended by the person who's following too closely behind them and not paying attention to what's going on. I've had that happen in my own experience. I approached a pedestrian area and I hit the signal. The first car stopped and the second car was not able to stop. It swerved, narrowly missed the car in front of it. It ended up headed right towards me, but then it skidded sideways and hit the curb, came to a really abrupt stop. If it had gone straight, it would have hit me. But after that, I don't actually make myself visible at that pedestrian sidewalk there until I've seen that the traffic slowed down, that I can give them enough notice that they can stop. And a lot of times I'll just wait till the traffic goes by completely. So for 17, we've got, for longer runs, run in loops close to your home. And I go for a 30-kilometer run during the summers. I don't do that in the wintertime anymore, but for those of you who do, I would just suggest running close to your home if you can in loops. That way, if something goes wrong, you have a short walk home. I know in my 30-kilometer runs, I'm never more than 5 or 6 kilometers away from home. If the weather gets really bad or if I don't feel very well, then it's a quick walk home versus being 15 kilometers out there and having to walk 15 kilometers back. Number 18, run towards traffic with preferably some space in between you and them, and some space on the opposing side as well. I have seen cars climb the curb onto the sidewalk in the wintertime, and unfortunately I wasn't at that spot at that time, But if I see a vehicle coming towards me, it's always nice to not only be able to have that space where they can, avoid me, but also have that area on the other side where I can, try to duck, jump out of the way. And so that is number 18. And number 19, like everything else, practice. All these tips, all these things that I come up with, they're from 22 years of running. I've gotten better at it. I very, very seldom slip and I very seldom fall, but that is not because I'm part mountain goat. That's because I have spent a lot of time running. I recognize the surface. I'm very conscious when I'm running and aware of pretty much everything, right? And so that's the only way to get better at winter running. Pick times of the day when it's safest. Go out running with your friends out in the parks and stuff. Whatever you have to do to get those miles in, because the more familiar you are with conditions and how to run in the winter, the better you are, the safer you are. And number 20, last but not least, this is something I don't do in the spring, summer, or fall. I see a lot of people doing this. This isn't an issue of having the richest running experience you can. This is an issue of having the safest running experience you can. And it is simply leave your headphones, leave the music at home. And you want to be able to hear things in the wintertime when those cars are rolling by on the snow. They're actually not as noisy as they are in the springtime. You might not be able to hear it. You have to trust your senses at all times. If someone's dog is chasing after me and they're trying to give me a warning, I want to be able to hear that, because that sudden shift in, oh, there's a dog right there, that could be enough to slip on that ice. If I have to change directions really quickly, all these things that you just all of a sudden you have to move quickly. If it's a dry sidewalk, you're not going to be in that rough a shape, but if you have to change directions really quickly on ice or snow, you just have to unbrace yourself for that split second. That's a potential slip or fall, and so you always want to be extra alert, and you can't do that with something in your ears, unfortunately. And so you want to be able to hear, see, whatever you have to do, but leave the headphones at home. And that's it for my 20 tips for running in the wintertime. Hopefully next week I will be back with my spring running shoe collection. I hope you've gotten something out of this. If you've liked it, if you have any other suggestions, leave some comments in the comments below. Otherwise, this is Jim again, and have a good, safe run wherever you're going, and stay safe, stay healthy, and hopefully we'll get through this all together. Peace out.